Welcome back to Under the Knife, on location. It probably won't surprise you to find out that I was a strange child, and I grew up to be an even stranger adult. I used to drag my grandmother from cemetery to cemetery in Chicago hunting ghosts, so I thought while I was here I'd relive those days. That's my grandma driving her German sports car. Mount Carmel Cemetery was consecrated in 1901. There are 250,000 remains at the site, and about 800 remains are interred here annually. The cemetery is most notable as the final resting place of numerous local organized crime figures from history. The most famous resident here is the gangster Al Capone. Now you may be wondering what any of this has to do with medical history. Well, I have one word for you: syphilis. Al Capone is the most notorious and violent old-school gangster ever to terrorize Chicago. At the height of his career during Prohibition, he and his gang were raking in more than $100 million annually. In 1932, he was charged with tax evasion and sent to Alcatraz in San Francisco. It was there that Capone was officially diagnosed with syphilis, which he had contracted 10 years earlier. The disease was so advanced that it had begun to affect Capone's nervous system and, crucially, his brain. Before the discovery of penicillin in 1928, syphilis was an incurable and ultimately fatal disease. Victims suffered from everything from dementia to blindness to saddle nose, in which the bridge of the nose caves into the face. Somehow the press discovered that Capone was losing his mind and blamed it on his horrible life at Alcatraz. They didn't have a clue that it was symptoms relating to syphilis. This inspired his wife, May Capone, to call the warden and ask for her husband to be freed. Pity was taken on Capone, and he was sent to the hospital ward until he was officially released from Alcatraz. During his moments in the hospital, he went back and forth between lucidity and pure confusion. Al Capone eventually died of a brain hemorrhage on January 25, 1947 in Miami, Florida. His body was transported to Mount Olivet Cemetery in Chicago, but over time, people began to vandalize the gravesite. The family got fed up with vandals, and so had Capone's body removed to Mount Carmel Cemetery, along with the bodies of his mother and father, where all three remain today. Word got around about the new gravesite, however, and soon people were coming to Mount Carmel to gawk at the notorious gangster's final resting place. In 1972, Capone's headstone was stolen once again. People still visit the gravesite today, although the Capone family have made it harder and harder to find Al's grave. A lot of times his grave is covered over with turf, and as you can see, people leave all kinds of tributes like these empty whiskey bottles, this beer can. So, in keeping with that tradition, I brought my own tribute, some gin. At that, I'm not leaving a whole bottle of gin.